My name is John Vecchi. Oof, a little bit of feedback there.
I'm Patrick Orzechowski. My friends and folks call me PO.
So PO and I were going to talk about, like you said, malicious actors depend on your unknowns. We're going to cover a few areas of unknowns. We're going to talk about wireless. We're going to talk a little bit about XIoT. These IoT devices are going to show you kind of a robot hack, if you will. We're going to walk through that, have a little bit of fun. And then, of course, can't do this without talking about the cloud. So we'll kind of move into cloud, and we'll show a series of, exploits and different things, tell you a few stories. Some of these will just be ones that are out publicly that we could look at. Some of these are ones, I'm with Mitiga, and we're not going to talk about our companies here, but we do cloud detection and response. We do managed incident response, threat hunting, managed cloud detection and response. So some of these are actually from our clients. Customers, some of those case studies, and PO he's just going to be here, and he's going to talk about a lot of stuff in there as well. I don't know if you want to just say at least what Torque does so they know where you're coming from.
Yeah, we do security automation. I'm going to throw some buzzwords out there in a couple of the slides. Obligatory marketing stuff. If anyone has a schmoo ball they want to support me, I don't know, do they make Saint balls? You can go ahead and do it. We can discuss why buzzwords exist.
All right. We're going to just quickly tell you about us. We don't want to spend much time, but take it away, PO.
Yeah, so PO, I've been in cybersecurity 25 years now. Cut my teeth in the Symantec SOC as it was becoming Symantec from RipTech, long time ago. Then ended up in the defense and intelligence community, first in the defense side, blue team, working the Titan Rain incidents. That's kind of where I learned forensics and started looking at network detection and response, SIM, those types of things. Then worked in the IC, was lucky enough to do red teaming on satellite systems for NRO, NSA, CIA. So I had a good time in the government. That's why I said good enough for government work. That's the common saying. To get stuff done. Then moved on to telecommunications. That's kind of where I got into big data and SIM technologies, pulling in lots of logs. One of the reasons why this talk was interesting to me was because these are things that are kind of in the shadows, right? You don't get your normal endpoint logs from IoT. You don't get your normal raw logs from the cloud or wireless devices for the most part. So that's why this is a fascinating topic for me. And then I was a founding employee at Deepwatch, large MDR, helped build the architecture there, and did that for about 10 years and joined Torque almost a year and a half ago.
Awesome. What a background. Man, it's a pleasure to be up here with you, PO. Same, as security guy, I've been over 24 years doing this. You can see some of the companies I've been with. I have a mixture of big company background and a lot of startups. I do both, so you can call me crazy. I'm also an advisor at YL Ventures. I built a couple award-winning podcasts. You might have seen Security on Cloud and IoT Security podcasts. Those are all over Spotify and Apple. So that's kind of my background. It says CMO. I'm also a strategist. I do a lot of strategy. I'm not just like your typical kind of marketing CMO guy. So anyway, there you go.
Shameless plugs.
I know, it's just...
For your podcast. Had to do
exactly. Podcast. All right, so unknowns. There's a host of things we're going to kind of talk about. In all of these areas, especially as we look at XIoT, and God knows about the cloud, there's just like massive kind of movements in technology and advancements in it. And whenever you have good, there's definitely bad on the other end of that. And malicious actors are always going to be there to exploit those gains and exploit any area of that where it's still kind of an unknown, people aren't looking at it. And so obviously attackers are looking at wireless. We're going to show that. On the XIoT side, it's an absolute shit show. If I can say so myself, on the XIoT side, so many devices, we'll talk about that. They are absolutely looking at those. And of course, the cloud, absolutely positively. And now you throw AI into that, and it's incredible. And the big thing we'll talk about here is it comes down to a lot of times the visibility, right? Because in the shadows, the unknowns, it's visibility. They don't have a lot of visibility across that.
And you have that on traditional hosts. You can put agents on there, grab logs, firewalls, network devices. Traditional logging is as old as we are in cybersecurity. So, and dumping that into a SIEM really isn't that viable anymore.
It's not. And we'll talk more about that as well when we get into the cloud session on that and kind of that the kind of clashing with the SIEM. And again, we're going to talk about, hackers, they kind of are hopeful that you aren't kind of looking at this. They're hopeful that you're counting on all the preventative controls to do this. But as we know, prevention is foundational. It's fundamental. You must have it, but it will fail and is failing every day. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the attacks. Right? So they're counting on you to kind of do the same thing you've been doing for 20 years over and over again and keep repeating it and not looking at some of this other stuff. And they're hoping you're under-resourced and, you don't have the detection and response. And, they hope you rely on all the kind of legacy approaches. And so those are some of the things we'll kind of touch on as we go in here. But let's talk about wireless. So we'll focus on a few things. Now, the wireless area, man, it's there's so many. I mean, when you think in terms of, you can look at all the basic devices and you can look at purpose-built devices like pineapples and rubber ducks. But if you look at just some of the standard devices, there are so many of these things, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. With the Flipper Zero, and it seems like everyone has one of those.
Right.
Is hacking whatever's out there. Side project of mine I want to do, in case there's anyone out there who likes baseball, I want to test the PitchCom system because I'm pretty sure it's unpublished encryption and radio frequency between the catcher and the pitcher. So it's just an example of some of the electronic things, and they say it's military-grade encryption, if you ever heard that term.
Yeah, we've heard that.
We've heard that before. So, I mean, it's ubiquitous. There was a RFID hacking section.
With Andrew,
over here. So lots of cool stuff going on in the radio spectrum.
Yeah, and look, a lot of the wireless stuff is sneaky, right? So, for example, one of the things we've seen is solar-powered cameras. So, and when I get into the IoT section, we'll talk a little bit about cameras. They are one of the biggest offenders. So you've got solar-powered cameras that can put a SIM card in that can stream and upload video and audio to the cloud. As you know, cameras record audio as well as video. Some people don't know that, but when that camera is looking at you, it's recording audio too, just so you know. And so imagine, and this is not on the network, so you could have all your controls, your IPS, your firewalls, your data security, all the security, but one of these cameras sneaks into the factory floor, it sneaks into your office, it sneaks into your dev environment. Guess what? That's not on the network. And maybe you can track down 1, 2 of these, but in many cases, there might be 15, 20, 30 of these things, right? So all these kinds of things. You've got Bluetooth microphones that can be 100 yards away from a building outside. I mean, it's just, the wireless it's crazy, right? So this is an attack, the evil twin. You've probably heard about this PO. And so we'll just talk about some of these. It's fairly straightforward, right? It's just, you've got a victim who's just on his laptop, communicating to an access point, getting to a destination over there to access information and data. Typical stuff, right? Happens every day. But now you've got an attacker who sets up a pineapple. These are very powerful. You can set them up yourself, a few $100. You go to YouTube, find all the videos you want. Easy, fairly easy to set up. These things are very powerful. So now the attacker is going to set this up. He's going to do some AP mimicking. He's basically going to, push out his SSID and MAC address, and it's powerful enough where he's going to get the victim to see, wow, that's, connect to me. I'm the main one you want here, right? So now after that, he's going to send a deauthentication packet that disrupts the victim. The victim won't even know. It's just a glitch. It's like it happens every time, right? It kind of disconnects real quick, comes back up. User doesn't even know about that, but what's happened now is the laptop now sees the pineapple and says, wow, well, that's a strong signal. It's the same SSID and MAC address I was connected to before. I'm just going to connect to that. Of course, right? So now he connects to that, the original access point's out of the picture, and now this guy's in the middle, right? And can duplicate everything and see everything going on, right? And so now the attacker can basically intercept and forward all the traffic and can see everything that's going. And the victim has no idea. It's fairly straightforward.
Yeah. It still works, too.
It still works.
When I saw these slides, I tried it the other day. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah, I mean, some of these
People
stuff.
will automatically connect to whatever network they know.
Yep.
If it's unsecured, and a lot of the public networks are still unsecured without passwords. So it's without WPA. So it's
So watch out for the blind apples. It's super simple. It doesn't need to be technical much at all. This is one, the nearest neighbor. I call it the worst nearest neighbor attack. And now this is one done by attackers who were on the other side of the world, right? So thousands of miles away. This is actually, we pretty much know this was in a Russian threat actor. And so essentially from way far away, they want to get to organization A, right? So they're going to do some passwords spraying of this thing to try to get, thwart their MFA and get through. But in this instance, in this case, they weren't successful. So they got creative and said, well, how about we pivot? And how about we find another organization that's physically close to organization A? They could be in the building, they could be right next door to them, just in proximity to them. So we're going to go compromise something in organization B. They actually found that they had a vulnerable VPN, so they compromised that. And then from there, they just did a simple RDP attack, compromised a laptop at that org that had Wi-Fi, was connected to the network, and now they're on that laptop, and from that laptop, then they can go and access and get into organization A, right? And in organization A, they attach to the access point there, right? Really no MFA going on that thing, basically just in the front door. So they access that network with stolen credentials. So just on the front end, they needed those credentials. There was no MFA on the back end of that access point. So they basically accessed it through there. And now they've done that with the neighbor. What happened, interestingly, here was company B actually found out that their MFA had been compromised, so they quickly locked that down. So now the attacker said, well, I can't get to organization A through B, I'm going to go to C. So they just basically went to another organization in proximity and just basically duplicated the same attack and got back in with stolen credentials and did it that way. So again, it's fairly simple, right? It's not like anything extremely crazy.
I have some nearest neighbors I want to attack.
Exactly. And here, this is now the modern SOC strategy, right? So,
yeah. So over the last year and a half, the role of field CISO was new to me. I was lucky enough to join a company that let me kind of define it. And I've been thinking about what we can do in the modern SOC to get past traditional kind of this is the way we've always done things, like linear alert triage, severity stuff. I just put out a blog post on how we need to rethink traditional severities: critical, high, medium, low. And I came up with the 3 A's. As you get to be dinosaurs, can only think of 3 things at one time, right? So the first A is autonomous. So if you're not building workflows, and this could be open source, you could use any open source tool, or if you're a developer, you can develop your own workflows. Your SOC should be autonomous. Agentic, this is one of those marketing buzzwords that I was going to throw out there, but when we introduced our agentic capabilities a few months ago, I was skeptical, right? I was skeptical at their effectiveness and if they would really replace the ability of someone to do logic and deterministic capabilities in the SOC. Now you can actually give an agent a role and have it go do things, and they're pretty consistent. I would say about 80-20. 80% of the time you're going to get a consistent outcome from an agent. 20% of the time they're going to do something a little different. Hopefully they don't do something really weird. That's why you put guardrails on your AI agents. Agile. And I don't mean agile in the sense of the development philosophy agile. I mean, the way we've always done things, especially in enterprises, is, oh, we can't rip and replace this endpoint technology or firewall technology because it's going to take us a year. It's going to cost more than just renewing. So we keep renewing and renewing and renewing. You should be able to rip and replace technology pretty quickly and reinvent those processes very quickly with whatever technology that you have. So don't think of the center of the SOC as your tech stack. Think of it as the autonomous capabilities of what you've implemented.
Yeah, 100%.
Anyone familiar with the threat intelligence pyramid of pain? Alex Pinto? Yeah. He came up with it about 12 years ago, definitely. 15 maybe. I totally stole the concept from him. He doesn't mind. But I built the automation pyramid of pain. The way the pyramid works, I'll go through, for the sake of time, all the details here. But you start with your basic integrations, right? Integrate with every API part of your stack. Integrate with your case management. Make sure everything is understood by your SOC. Do automatic reporting and KPIs. I think a lot of folks on the blue team are now being held accountable for their work and how much money the SOC is spending on things.
Yep.
And, start with basic automated response, isolating host, containing host. And when we talked about wireless, and we'll talk about XIoT and cloud, doing those basic automated responses on the things that you can't see. And we'll talk about the Salesforce attack a little bit.
Yep.
It's a good example of understanding what you have and doing basic automated response. And then obviously level 5 is fully automated remediation in the SOC. So end to end, no human involvement. I know it's kind of a pipe dream, but hopefully we can get there, at least with some tier 1, tier 2 use cases.
Yeah. And agentic autonomous SOC. How about that?
Autonomous SOC.
And
For the wireless stuff, I use Meraki as an example. Having it detect the SSID anomaly or RSS anomaly, for malicious SSID, trigger an automatic containment workflow. So make sure that you have those APIs to go out and maybe contain the hosts that have been attacked and that nearest neighbor, right? The hosts that have been compromised, and the first attack as well. If you have those end products, whether they're, doesn't matter, Microsoft can do it, CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, any of the major ones. Was the containment successful, right? Did you put it on a contained VLAN? And can you make sure you can do forensics on it without it having lateral movement in your network? Create a case. At this point, you don't create a case until you know that something bad happened. I mean, that's my personal preference, right? Let your autonomous systems do everything that they can versus having a human look at every single critical alert.
It's not scalable.
Yeah. And if you can, close the alert automatically. Now, for something like a complicated nation-state attack, that's not going to happen.
Right.
You're going to want to open an incident and have a branch that goes to your DFIR team or an external DFIR capability.
But you can kind of address a lot of that tier 1, tier 2, the early stuff, even in an advanced threat where a human's going to close it, can still do this. This is...
Yeah, we talk about the art of the possible a lot, and it really is up to the security team's aversion to automating things, right? So if you can automate as much as you want, but do you trust those systems to do those things consistently?
Yeah.
If you build the right workflows and have the right logic, then they will be consistent.
Yep. Awesome. All right, let's talk about XIoT. So we talked about wireless and all the different devices. I mean, this takes it to a whole new stratosphere with XIoT. There are so many of these devices, and they grow. I mean, there's literally hundreds of these devices that are connecting to the network almost every minute in the world today, right? So it's just exploding and multiplying, right? So by 2030, estimates are about 125 billion. So just put that into perspective with traditional endpoints. To say it's a order of magnitude difference is an understatement, right? These devices are everywhere, right? So think in terms of UPSs and rack mounts and lights out management and printers and cameras, PLCs, OT equipment. We're going to do a robot hack, and you'll see kind of some of that. VoIP phones, door controllers, medical devices, they're everywhere, right? And, they've got certain characteristics about them, right? They're network connected, they speak TCP IP, right? In fact, they're hyper network connected, these things, right? They've got so many different interfaces on them, whether it's, serial over Ethernet, DNP3, they've got, just on and on. FTPH, some of them are very advanced. You look at printers and cameras, I mean, you've got, every kind of connection you possibly can have on these things. They're purpose-built in the sense that they've got firmware, but I say you see a camera, I see a Linux server, okay? These are all Linux. They're running, different versions of Linux, right? BusyBox and Android and BSD on some of them are real-time operating systems like VxWorks. But they're basically all Linux servers. They're just computers without a keyboard, but some of them are more powerful than your laptop. Some of these cameras today are more powerful than some of the laptops you have with their processing power and storage, right? And so a lot of white labeling, which basically means in a nutshell that because there's a lot of shared libraries, you could have an exploit, a big vulnerability that's on a camera, and you're going to find that exact same vulnerability on a door controller somewhere, right? Yeah. Because they just like luggage, they carry them over, and because there are a lot of these similar kind of firmware, these vulnerabilities just get passed around. So if you're an attacker, it's like, man, I can get into a camera. I can also have my pick on the same vulnerability on multitude of different devices.
You just reminded me of the Verkada hack. So it doesn't have to be a super hacker who looks at vulnerable.
100%, right? Yeah.
Does anyone remember the Verkada hack where people got into I think it was the SpaceX or Tesla factory floor cameras? It was a default admin password. That was it. And they were able to get into those cameras, and it was a lot of egg on Verkada's space for leaving those default passwords in. And, theoretically, you should have those default passwords changed, but a lot of these OT devices now require outbound connection for a web interface to manage them.
Yes.
So you have to have internet connectivity for
into some of these things. We had a customer, for example, a client who is a casino. So imagine a casino. How many cameras does a casino have, right? Probably can't even count them. And they've got the good stuff, very high-tech, sophisticated cameras. So they basically found out by someone actually looking at the power bill, which that's got to take a lot for someone to look at a power bill of a casino and see an anomalous spike. But they found kind of a spike in the power bill. They started looking into it. They discovered that a whole load of their cameras were taken over to mine crypto, right? So these devices are powerful computers, guys. I mean, they've got processing power. So attackers will go take over these things and mine crypto on them like crazy. And they were, obviously the electricity in that, they actually saw, a spike in their electricity. This is common with some of these devices, right? But you were just talking about the state of these things, right? default passwords. So 50% of these things on the best day downhill with the wind have default passwords, right? It's usually even more than that. The other half, you might say, wow, that's not bad. Half don't have default passwords. Well, the other half, because a lot of these devices are stuck in by not security personnel, the passwords were changed once, even if they were set up 15 years ago, with a very simple basic password and have never been changed since, right? So that other 50% is not a great rosy picture either. Passwords are a mess. End-of-life firmware, right? So, nearly 75% of these devices are running firmware that's end of life. So just imagine if you were running your IT shop and you woke up one morning and found out that 75% of your managed endpoint devices are running end of life firmware. That would be the end of the world. But that's kind of like what it's like in this, right? And then you look at kind of the CVSSs in here. So you got about nearly 70%, right, of these devices have scores of 9 or 10 or 8, right? 8, 9, or 10, which means you do not need to be terribly sophisticated to go. It's basically just type in an IP address and hit a button in some cases, right? To exploit these. So they are kind of a mess. So we did something kind of fun. If you never played with a robot, this is it's a robot, very, very cool. Have some fun with it. I'd say definitely you should go buy one and play around with it. So we bought one of these robots. This is used in manufacturing environments. It drills, it shaves, it does all kinds of different things. So we got this thing, we took it out of the box, set it up with default configure. It didn't change anything. But the one thing we did is we created a program and we called it CAN. And we basically told this thing to just gently go down. This is not what usually this thing does. So this was tricky. Don't come down hard, but just gently come down and just tap the top of this can. And so we created this program. We called it CAN, right? So that's basically what we did, just created that program. And from there, we started experimenting and exploring the thing. Now, to control this, one of the main ways is this connected hand controller device. It's got about a 10-foot cord on it, and you control it with this thing, right? And so you can kind of control it there. You can use PLCs. But there's a third way. We found out that this thing is connected to the network. So we pinged it, and we thought, heck, this is connected to the network. Let's ping it, and let's see if it's running a web server. Like, does this thing actually have a web server? Oh, my God, yeah. In 1992, a 1992 web server, but nonetheless, a web server. And so we looked at it, we were like, wow, this is crazy. So we started looking through here, wow, what's in here? Just exploring it, right? So we're like, what's this? The configuration center. Well, that's it. This is the version number. You can see the version from 2023, the date it was put in. And this is just this is default version that's kind of running on this thing. And so you can see that. We say, that's kind of cool. Okay, what else is on this thing, right? So let's look at the active programs. We started looking. Well, look, there's the program CAN-LS. That's the one we created that went down and touched the CAN. So we're just looking at that. There's the date. There's the thing. Now here's your set points, your x-axis, your y-axis, and z-axis. Just note that 205 down there. I'll talk about it later. So cool. So that's the program we wrote. We see that. What else is on this thing? Let's take a look. We go down and see, wow, a remote eye pendant. So we know that physical one. This is a virtual eye pendant. So you can do everything that physical one can do, but you can do it remotely through this web server. So we started looking at it, look at the protocols, TCP/IP. Well, yeah, we're on the network. So I got that. It's got TCP/IP. What else is in here? FTP. Well, that's interesting. It's got FTP, and it's anonymous FTP. Well, that couldn't be possible. So we were like, that seems crazy. Let's look at the user manual. It says, we're looking at this thing, and if you look at it, it says, if you see an anonymous username, you may be able to connect through FTP without credentials. Well, thank you, user manual. That's really good information to know that you have an anonymous. So we're like, well, I mean, we can't just connect to it. I mean, I didn't even authenticate. We just logged in. We didn't even log in, just connected straight in. And we're like, oh my God, it logged us in. Well, we can't. Could it show us a directory? Like, could we actually do that? It wouldn't do that. It's like, oh my God, well, there's the directory. and it's just one big massive flat file. It's like, so we're looking in there and we're like, can we find our program in here? Because I mean, oh, there's our CAN LS. Look at that. So I'm in the file system. So an anonymous FTP server, that is crazy. It wouldn't let us get that CAN LS file we created, right, and download it. It would never let it, my God, never let us do that, we're pretty sure. But it did. So now we're using this hacker tool I call Notepad. And we opened it up and you see an ASCII. And so you see there's CAN LS, there's the one. Now here's what we're gonna do. See that 205? I'm just gonna go mess with this. So we're like, let's change it to 305 millimeters. And now we'll rename this thing in Notepad and we'll call it Crush, CAN Crush. So we're just gonna save as, we're gonna change the name, CAN Crush, right? That's all we're gonna do, right? So there it is, CAN Crush. And we're gonna put the LS, because that's what it likes to have. So it's CAN Crush LS. We're like, okay, it wouldn't ever let us put it though. I mean, you could get it, you could log it, you could do it. Wouldn't ever let us put that up in the directory. And next thing we know, yes, it could let us put that right up in the file system. So we're looking, there it is. There's CAN Crush right next to CAN. We're like, well, it's there, it's not running. So how, we'd have to tell it to use that, call that up and use that. But we were like, remember that pendant? I bet you we could go into that pendant and look at all the program files. Oh my God, there's CAN Crush. Let's go look at it. Just make sure it's the one we created. There it is. Let's go down and see that set point we created. So there it is. There's the date and time. Oh, there's the 305. So there it is. It's like, well, all we have to do is we should be able to just tell this thing to use that thing as the default. So we go in here, we go to that, I pendant. We come in, we're starting to look around, and now we can see the system information. We look at all the variables, right? And it's a real-time operating system. If you see something called def prog, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. That's probably the default program, right? So we just go in there and say, change it from CAN to CAN Crush. Say, just use that as your default program. It's like, this can't be that easy. It couldn't possibly be that easy. And so now these devices, they reboot like every week, sometimes every other week, sometimes every few days. And they're fast when they reboot, right? But the thing about these is that the default program's persistent. So it calls up the default program. You can reboot it 50 times and it's gonna call up. So we booted this thing up and we're like, it's got that CAN Crush now is the default program. We just told it. So now instead of just gently coming down and touching the top of the CAN, this naughty little robot crushes that CAN, right? So essentially, this is just showing a lot of these XIoT devices how incredibly easy it is oftentimes. Now, this thing could be, your imagination could go if this thing is in some kind of a factory making something very, very important, like maybe military equipment or something, you could do some serious damage. Or you could also just be very subtle and change something very slightly, and over time it's gonna fail. You could do stuff like that, right? And these devices are everywhere. The problem with XIoT is you can't see them. You don't know, they're not visible, right?
Yep. This is why you never take a security job in a manufacturing company.
On the OT side.
Or just take all these things and put them on a network that no one ever sees.
Exactly. Try to isolate them and air gap them, which really doesn't ever happen.
Yeah, you're not going to get logs from a device like that. You'd have to look with a tool. And I use Nozomi here as an example.
Yeah.
Look for default credentials, and any scanner will find that anonymous FTP and would be like, you probably shouldn't have this, right? Firmware, you might have to have a tool that looks for that. Again, SOAR-based network warranting and firmware rollback actions on your SOAR are critically important. I know folks who do work in manufacturing that have custom things that they've built to roll back firmware just in case, because if the floor is down for a minute, they lose $1 million or whatever.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, manufacturing. Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yep.
And continuous feedback. A lot of times on the visibility side, you don't have anything directly into those OT networks, right? Especially if it's like oil and gas or something critical infrastructure. Those are isolated. You might be able to get some data out and maybe have them do things on the other side from a remediation perspective. So it's very difficult. The example that I have here is the sensor layer. You have
Oh yeah, this one, yeah.
the sensor layer. You get IoT device telemetry from Nozomi. They just got purchased by a company, a weird company.
Forget who bought.
Yeah, I forget, something like a cell phone company or something. You have the ingestion layer. Obviously, you bring that into your SIM or somewhere where you can analyze it, do a correlation, and then
I think we need to flip your mic out.
so back to back to
Popcorn? You're popping popcorn or what?
SIM. We only have a couple of minutes left, so I'll just hold it. Thanks.
Was there anything else on it? That was really good, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the oversight,
like I said,
the automation, yeah.
like I said, it's very difficult to secure these networks, right?
Yeah.
You kind of have to do the best that you can. I'm working with a company that does optics, and like you said, if one of those machines messes up to build a lens, or they do medical devices,
Oh yeah.
and misaligns an optic, those things cost millions of dollars, right? And they do product reviews over product reviews. They look at firmware, they look at CVSS, they look at all these things, and it's all a manual process. So automation can help with that as well, with the contextualization of things, running not just scanners and default credential scans, but things like Black Duck against known code and things like that, because they're actually writing their own code and flashing the firmware of these medical devices that are, and then once they go out, they never touch them.
Yeah.
On purpose.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you can see why attackers love those unknowns, right? So now here's the cloud. Wow. I mean, it's, with the examples we showed, you kind of see attackers kind of, whether it's wireless and XIoT, kind of targeting a single thing and then, trying to go compromise that. And then from there, they might do some damage and do different things. But for the most part, it's kind of like targeting one thing. You look at the cloud, it's so dramatically different because it's just everything's meshed, right? And so everything is just connected. You've got federated identities. You've got all your SATs. You've got your cloud infrastructure, right? You've got all that stuff, right? And now, I mean, we're not even imagine all the AI stuff, but so your engineers, right, will use GitLab, right? GitHub, GitLab, and that's clearly something they use all the time, but also something that can be compromised and has been compromised. So if an attacker compromises GitLab, now in a cloud setting with this mesh, right, now that they've compromised GitLab, they can now go over to Okta with your SSO, single sign-on, and get into your Okta, right? So now they're in Okta, right? Through all the federated identities, what do I want to do next? So I'm just going to go log into your Slack. I'm going to get in there. God knows what I can find there. So now I'm inside your company and your Slack. And then from there, I can go to your Google workspace or your Windows workspace, whichever one it is. I can mess around, do some email forwarding, change some settings, whatever I want to do. And then from there, I could go play around with some EC2. I could get into your S3 bucket where there's tons of information there, and I could then just take that and exfiltrate it out, right? And that path could be all over here. That's just one path. They could have done a lot more than that, but that's just showing kind of in this cloud environment how the attackers know all this, it's all connected, right? And, it's identities, and you've got all this stuff there. And the thing, when we talk about visibility and lack of visibility, when we get to the cloud, it is really, really a serious issue, right?
And good luck correlating that attack with a traditional SIM.
Right. Right, exactly, right. And now you may have preventative controls, as we say, preventative controls in the cloud. We're talking now about posture, right? So whether it's CNAPs or CSPMs, kind of looking at configurations and posture, right? So you've got those, But again, if that's your barrier, then that will fail. And when it does, now you're in a situation where attackers are in, you can't see that attack, you don't have visibility across your cloud, across your identities, across your SaaS applications, and now AI on top of that, right? All of the SaaS infrastructure and services. So you can't even see these attacks. So this is how critical it is now to have, the detection, the cloud detection and response, and the modern SOC to start being able to detect these things and then be able to triage that, right? Respond to that, investigate it, and ultimately mitigate and prevent the breach. Because if you don't have that and your preventative controls fails, you're headed for a breach, right?
Yeah. It's a super layered approach, and the enrichment of all this data is really important. I mean, I can't emphasize it enough, where those things are accessed from, who accesses it, and how you lock down each API capability between the tools.
Yes.
You can't just say SSO, you're in a group, go anymore.
Yep, exactly. So here's one that's kind of a mesh marketplace one. And yeah, even applications get compromised, right? So this is one where, typical company, we had customer and one of the devs wanted to set up deep source. It's not a hacker tool. It's nothing malicious. It's actually used to test. It's kind of a security tool. It's used to test code. So this, dev decided, I want to set up this deep source and check it out. So he did it and he installed it with his permissions. It's easy. Why not? And worked with it for part of the day or most of the day and decided, that's fine. But I don't need this tool. I don't really need it. It's fine. And just kind of moved on, which is what happens a lot, right? Left it there and just moved on, forgot about it. This happens all the time in the cloud, I'd say. Yeah, it's like massive. Now, what happened is deep source was compromised. So now deep source is hacked, and the first thing attackers do when they hack it is they just say, what can I do? And this is where they're also using AI now, post-compromise, to do all this work to say, what's in there? What can I go get, right? You hear about kind of these third-party things. So what they find is by accessing the deep source, they now could access all the customers' integrated third-party applications, one of which was GitHub. And they're like, wow, we can now go access all of their customers' GitHubs, which has what is on there? Source code. That's pretty cool. And now we can go access that. And basically through that hack was then able to then affect this company, right? And so now they started downloading the customer source code and all their AWS secrets, right? And this specific customer was definitely impacted by that. So later, GitHub notified this customer. A couple weeks later, they didn't know about it. And the ramifications of that for them was just a massive drag, right? So they had major disruptions. They had to suspend services to over half of their customers for a while. They had massive problems with customers saying, we're not going to use you again unless you have third-party audits we need you to have, and their cyber insurance increased, and, just a mess, right? And this just shows kind of now, lessons learned. The dev didn't do anything malicious. It was just not best practices. Next time, you want to try to shut that stuff down. But this shows in the cloud all these interconnected we're even now at fourth-party connections, right? If you have a third party, let's say Deep Source, happened to buy another company, and they didn't even quite integrate it yet, but now that company's connected to all their customers, so you could actually have fourth-party risk now, right?
More than that. It's actually exponential now because
this goes on, right?
Yeah, model context protocol terrifies me because I can't figure out a way to connect MCP server and client without over-giving permissions to the data that the client needs access to. So I am hoping that MCP matures and has more kind of non-human identity role-based access control. But for now, you're just kind of giving the keys of the kingdom to MCP, And you could have as many MCP clients as you want, as long as they have that access.
And the non-human identities are really
Yeah, and those clients, like if you have write access, you can actually do things like delete S3 buckets and have it take action for you. And it's not, like I said, it's not consistent.
Yeah. So this is a crypto miner one, embedded in AWS AMI. We'll talk about what that is. But basically with these AMIs, this is AWS's AMIs, it will let you, it doesn't advise you to, it might not be supported, but you can actually say, I want Windows 2008, an AMI of Windows 2008, even though it's end of life, it's 5 years end of life, and you actually can go do that if you really want to go do that, right? And so it's possible. You can do that, and that's kind of what happens. So these are AMIs, Amazon Machine Images. They're really handy because they come kind of pre-configured with the OS and all the configurations. You can have ones that can be for databases, for web servers, for Mongo, all kinds of things, right? And they come in lots of different flavors, Windows and Amazon's version of Linux and Ubuntu and Red Hat and blah, 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 right? Now, as you see on the right, you can have these where you can access them in AWS that are clearly supported, but you can also find some of these that are no longer supported, but they're actually available, right? And so doesn't mean they want you to do it. So you could go deploy Windows NT 4.0, which is very, very bad. Amazon would say, do not do that, but you could go do that. You could actually find it. What makes it worse is you don't even have to get these through Amazon. There's all kinds of independent other places where you can go get AMIs, right? And now you're in a territory where you're kind of like, you have to trust that these things are safe. And so there's a lot of like, well, I'm just hoping they're safe. And if you don't go do the work to kind of take a look at what it is, you can go, to Andy's AMI store down the shop and, go get one of these AMIs. This is kind of what happened here, right? So you say, I want Windows 2008. I'm going to go to one of these independent, resources and get this, right? And so here it is. I'm so happy. I got Windows 2008, R2, and this is exactly what I wanted to do. But little do you know that hidden inside there is the Monero crypto miner, built right in for your pleasure. And so now you have a situation where you just deployed something that is not even supported anymore, but you could do it, and you went and did it. Little did you know it had a crypto miner built in, right? And there's kind of two models of these. The crypto miners do. When these things are deployed, we call them kind of the smash and grab and the sneaky. So the smash and grab is like, you know what? I know I have a limit. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go all out. I'm going to mine as much crypto as I can. And you're just going to shoot. You're going to see it within 1 quarter. You're probably going to find it, or maybe sooner.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully someone's watching the AWS bill.
But these are the kind of, I want to just go hard and mine as much, and I expect that you're probably going to find this sooner rather than later, versus kind of the sneaky one, which is more the turtle, which is like, I like it here, I'm just going to sit, I'm going to mine crypto, but I'm not going to be greedy, I'm going to take my time, and I'm just going to mine this stuff. And over a long period of time, and because there's so many different parties who are using these cloud resources, someone might actually see a spike and think, well, it's not me, it's got to be those marketing morons or something. You know what I mean? Like someone, and so this can just go on and on and on.
Aren't you a CMO?
I know. I make fun of myself. So that's like, this is, and again, we don't have control over the spend, so it's very easy for this stuff to go on and on without people really kind of realizing that, there's crypto being mined here, but we don't even really know about it, and that could just go on for so long.
Yeah.
All right, Microsoft 365. Just picking that, it's a common one. We all use it. Everyone uses it. It's not because it's good or bad or anything. It's just like this is one that we found and you could use this. But this now gets into some of the log things, right? So you look at 365 and you say, all right, the 365 will capture logs capture logs for 90 days. And you're like, oh, okay. Now, just so you know, 90 days is not a lot. It's very insufficient. We'll talk about how long you do need that. But what you don't know is that actually, right, you can access 7 days of that through the API. If you want to go now and get days 8 through 90, you're going to have to use PowerShell to go do that. And it's so painful that if you want to go get 30 days of logs with 365 with PowerShell, it's going to take you more than a month to go get it. Right? Maybe longer. I don't know. It's going to take a long time. It's painful.
Yeah, I worked a phishing incident with a nonprofit, and it took forever to figure out how it happened.
And a lot of people don't even realize that they throttle it intentionally, by the way. They do that throttling because actually they say 90 days. They really don't want you to get those logs, to be honest with you. And so it's like 7 days. Yeah, you go get that. After that, good luck to you, right? We really need 3 years of logs, and people fall off their chairs when they hear 3 years. You really do need to start having that much of that logged. Now, and it's not just, it's across all kinds of stuff. And then this is where we talked earlier about the SIM. Like, yes, you need to capture this stuff in near real time, and you need to have, a data lake that you can go put this stuff in. You cannot take that kind of data and stick it into your SIM, right? You can't do that. It'll kill you. You'll be you'll be bankrupt with the money you're spending on that. You can't really do that, right? But nonetheless, here's an attack. So this was a customer, did 360. Now they were compromised, but we can't tell you how because we only had 7 days of logs. So I have no idea how they were compromised, but they were. And so basically what the threat actors did is they compromised 365 and they went into the email and did some configured some email forwarding, basic, fairly straightforward, right? These are typical tactics, right? And then they went in and did some email filtering for rules. They'd send them to the hidden folders and these kinds of things. Fairly typical stuff, but something they did here, which is kind of interesting, is they registered some fake domains to masquerade, right, as senders and receivers. And like, why would they do that? So what they did is with those domains, they would receive a forwarded email, right? They would then copy that email into an email from the domain that they started, and they would send that off to the recipient. So it was looking like a normal flow of it, right? It just seemed normal, right? But they were using those fake domains to do that. And then they basically did it on the other side as well. They did all the reverse. So they're basically, in a nutshell, they're just an attacker in the middle here, right? Getting everything and forwarding it off and using these domains to do that. And this one happened to be a legal firm. Their client was an auction house. So within this whole thing, it was a legal firm with an auction house and a buyer and a seller with that auction house and an authenticator. And they were in there for several months, like quite a long time, right? And at the end of the day, that it resulted in a theft of a $15 million wire transfer. Now, they got most of it back, not all of it back. Most of that was recovered. But again, you can just see kind of with that. Yep. Okay, this is MongoDB. And this is just showing that sometimes ransomware actors lie. I know that's a surprise to you. But they sometimes do. So when you start a new instance in AWS, right, it immediately starts looking for misconfigurations. And their footprint's massive, right? So they've got almost 2% of IP4 addresses in the world. So about 100 million IP4 addresses, not even talking about IPv6. So just IPv4, right? So they're constantly scanning all this stuff, right? And there's a couple basic approaches to ransomware, right? There's the standard one where I'm going to come in, I'm going to encrypt your data. I'm going to tell you, I just encrypted your data and you need to send me a Bitcoin to simplify it. You need to send me a Bitcoin for me to get your data back and unencrypt, right? That's one. The second one is I encrypted your data. I also made a copy of your data. So if you want it unencrypted, send me a Bitcoin. If you want me to not publish, put all the copy of this out there, then you need to pay me another Bitcoin, right? Then there's a third way, which is I encrypted it, I copied it, but I will also notify, I also look at all the data, and I will go notify third parties of your supply chain, government. I will tell everybody in the world that you were hacked and I got your data, right? And then they want more money for that. So that's kind of the way they'll do that. And so MongoDB was breached, and in this one, they bound it 0.0. Right? So basically it was like they bound this thing to listen just for every connection. You can connect to me anyway, anywhere, anywhere. Yeah, you got it, right? So that was one thing they probably shouldn't have done there. And it was just, so what they did, it was a test database, but what the engineers had done is when they built the test database, right, they actually used real production data because it was easy. And so they just copied a bunch of production data, put it in the test database. So on one hand, if it got encrypted, the company was like, I don't care. That's not, it's just a test run. But on the other hand, now they said they copied it and they're going to push it out in the wild. Now that's a disclosure problem because it's real customer data. So that was a big problem. But when we went in and investigated, as you look, and you know this probably better than anyone, that you can see when you're doing an investigation and someone's in there doing this, you can investigate and see traces of what they had done, right?
You can, yeah. Forensically, you can see that. Based on cloud data, though, it's very difficult.
It's difficult, but yeah, if you've captured it, right?
If you have the data stored somewhere, you can forensically look at it.
Right.
And it's, again, being able to query that with some sort of automated platform is critically important.
And in this case, what we found when we went in there and looked at what we could see is that they actually really didn't take any data. They were lying, right? So they'll do this. They'll tell you, I got it, I took a copy, I did all this, give me the money. In this case, they didn't take anything. They didn't copy anything, right? So the database they did encrypt, we didn't care because we already have that data. We didn't lose anything, and there was no disclosure because they were lying, right? So they lied, and in that they sent a little note up here in the top, and they basically told them that you should feel comfortable paying us because we're not a terrorist organization. And they're very nice to tell them that they're not terrorist organization, so you should feel really good. But then they turned around and lied to them.
Violated a lot of laws, though.
Right. So no payment was made on that one. Right.
So for the sake of time, it is 4:30. If you want to talk about the Salesforce, anyone heard of it? What happened with Salesforce? Anyone want to admit that they got popped by it? I got a call from a friend who was panicked a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But very fascinating use case. It's 4:30. I think this was our...
Yeah, this is a...
Yeah? You want us to keep going?
It's
All
worth
right.
a couple extra minutes, yeah.
Encore. Okay. We lost a few people on the last few minutes, but yeah, so this was the drift hack. This is another, so that deep source attack would never happen again, right? These large Fortune 500 companies wouldn't allow another third party to get compromised and compromise their customers, right? So what happened was that they got in through a third-party application that never expired their authentication tokens and exposed them very, very easily. So that got you right into the Salesforce, and everyone stores everything in Salesforce now. It's not just sales data.
Yeah.
There's financial data in there. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do with Salesforce. It's basically an operating system in the cloud. And there were only a few forensic ways that you could look at this attack, right? It was a very complex cloud first. They didn't do any on-prem stuff. They didn't pivot. They didn't do anything. They just wanted your Salesforce data.
Yep.
It was through a third party, very sophisticated, multi-stage attack. Now, Salesforce came out right away and said, we were not vulnerable. If you have this third party installed, you gave it the permissions to this data, right? And Salesforce folks, customers weren't very happy about that. So Salesforce kind of did a mea culpa and did a full investigation after Palo Alto did their investigation. very fast. It happened super fast. I think 700 customers got compromised within a 4 or 5 day period, and only a couple of them noticed. And they got a ton of data, a ton of Salesforce data, very targeted. Some folks were exposed by it. Some folks were like, some of the stuff they got with the SQL queries that they ran weren't, wasn't very hurtful to our organization. So what we did, when my friend called me in a panic, and this is an eye chart, and it's an eye chart on purpose. What we did was built an automated hunting capability for our customers, if they wanted it, to look for this activity in their Salesforce through enrichment. We knew the IP addresses that they were coming from. Also, we knew the queries that they ran. So if you were able to have access to all the APIs, all the integrations that you needed, we leveraged VirusTotal, we leveraged some CrowdStrike data, we leveraged Salesforce to put together a package for folks to say, okay, here's the trigger, go look at all of this data without having to look at a SIM. Yeah. We were just looking directly into the cloud capabilities, because we could look at the queries that were run, we could look at the IP addresses that were accessing their Salesforce. They could know if they were compromised or not pretty quickly. This workflow takes about 4 minutes to run.
Wow.
So if you were to do this manually, it would be a real pain in the butt. So it's just an example of, we could have actually a tool like yours trigger this coming in and automatically run a hunt on all of your cloud systems for those indicators of compromise.
Huge. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. And look, I mean, that shows that we didn't spend a ton of time kind of just zeroing in on the SOC, this modern SOC idea. But I mean, and we didn't spend a ton of time talking about AI so much, but that is a huge piece. But SOC teams for the modern SOC to leverage AI agents, agentic AI, it's a must, because the threat actors now, they've got AI-enabled attacks. Their speed attacks are coming very fast. They're attacking your AI infrastructure and your AI services, right? So if you're the SOC, you need to leverage that to keep pace, right? To kind of counter that. Yeah. And it's just so enormously important.
And you can't see it here, but there are a couple of agents in there, and it's just a step in the if then else workflow.
Yeah.
And you give it a role. You give it a hunter role and say, go out to VirusTotal, look for this variable name IP. That's part of the trigger, right? Or variable username, or this group of text that is a SQL query. Wow. So it can go out and do that automatically for you if you don't have the Python skills or the skills to build those more complex workflows.
Yeah, and it's safe to say as well, as the last point, that for SOC teams in the cloud, is a safe statement to say a lot of them, there's a big gap of skills in the cloud, right? They're on-prem, they kind of got that down, right? In the cloud, there's a lot of kind of gaps, right? And the ability to go hunt.
Yeah, it happened real fast with us at Deepwatch too. We had all the traditional on-prem skills, endpoint skills, firewalls, all the, enterprise type capabilities. And then the cloud adoption came fast and furious. And then we had to become AWS experts and Azure experts, Office 365, and GCP even. I mean, if you could find a GCP security expert, let me know. It was very hard to find. So, it's very difficult to find that skill set, and the skills gap there is super wide. Not as wide as the OT space, I would say. Yeah, those are very specialized folks, and you know who you are. Definitely.
Yeah, so we won't spend any more time. You guys are so great for hanging out with us, and we appreciate it. So thank you very much. We're happy to take any questions, but I'm sure you guys want to go be done now. So
thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate it.